What's going on, guys? It's Matt from RC Overload. Today, finally got in all the stuff for the Revo, so we're going to put it all back together and do a bunch of stuff to it. I finished up, had to put an extra coat on the chassis of the Krylon Fusion. Didn't come out 100% after 5 coats, so 6 coats, and it looks a heck of a lot better. There we go. Voila. It's all black. Looks pretty nice. So, we're going to start off by rebuilding the diff, shimming it, greasing it up. I'm going to show you guys how to do all that kind of stuff and whatnot. Sorry it's taken me a couple weeks since I last had the video out on it. I had to do some Christmas shopping and wait a week for some parts to come in that still haven't come in. Luckily enough, the local hobby store had that part that I was looking for. Yeah, sometimes it can be a real pain to just try to get some parts for the RC, whether it's at the hobby store or online. Anyways, let's get started. Okay, so I've already gone through the whole car. I've cleaned everything, made sure there was no dirt in the joints and everything like that. I've already put together the front half of the car, just so I had an idea as to what to expect when putting it all together. Now, the rear diff is what I'm assembling right now. This was the whole reason why I took it all apart, and I'm kind of redoing everything. Now here is the rear diff. This is the new assembly, okay? We've already gone ahead and installed the side covers with the Driveshaft. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the smaller end out of the two, and I'm going to put it onto the new differential. Now you're going to need to line these up because they do have little grooves in it. And you'll know when it pops in because it'll pretty much hold itself into position. Okay, so there we go. Got one end in. Alright, oop, my bad. Now I got one end in. Alright, so now next we're going to take the spider gears. We're going to place them inside. Just be careful not to lose the little pins that go with it. Now the reason why I'm using this is I'm trying to get more of a locking action in the rear end, but I also want to be able to have some good on-road characteristics, so I'm not going extreme with it. The front is actually using a 30K in it. Okay, so let me fill this up. Okay, so now that that is fully assembled, just wipe off all the excess diff fluid. And then we can get on to assembling and shimming. Okay, so that's done. Move my tools out of the way. Alright. Now the trick to remember with this, okay? The differentials pretty much only go in one direction, especially if you take both of them apart. As a guide, if you line it up, I'll bring it over a little more. Okay, if you line it up with the other one in the same direction, both gears should be facing the same way. The back one is facing this way, so won't the front. So that way, when it's all assembled and you turn it around, it will actually be facing in the opposite direction, which allows for proper rotation for the front and back. Now if you have it laid out like this, and then you go to put the gear in the same direction as the other one, you're going to get a binding effect. And the car is not going to move. You're going to blow gears, strip gears, so forth. So the trick, I face them both this way. And this is only if you can't remember which way it went in. And there you go. Now you know which way this whole thing goes together. So we'll move the front out of the way. Okay. Get my shim kit. Now what I am using, okay, is the Team Associated shim kit. Part number 21141. Now I'll have this down in the description so anybody can go ahead and order them up for this. And I'll show you. Just gotta find the other part. Okay. Now the pinion gear, okay? When the pinion gear sits in, it's going to touch the gears, correct? Okay? Touch the gears like that. If I have the spacers over here, it's actually going to push the gear away from it. So then you're going to have more of an open. Now this is exaggerated, okay? You have the spacers on the other side, it's going to push it into the gears together to make it a nice tight fit. And that's what the goal is. Because without shimming it, you're going to strip out these gears again, which I did. They come in a kit of 4, usually 2 for the front, 2 for the rear, or if you want to use 3 in the rear and 1 in the front, doesn't matter. If you feel like you need more, order more. Now these are the 2 little shims. They are thinner than paper. I found mine needed 2, okay? Most of you are going to realize that you're going to need 2, maybe 3. Alright, so you're going to want to put it in on the end that has the bigger side, the side with the teeth on it. What I'm going to do is pull out my grease. Okay? Now I am using Valvoline synthetic grease. So it's used for wheel bearings on cars and all that other fun stuff. The reason why I'm using synthetic is its natural ability to be thinner and cause less friction. I'm not too worried about the temperature, you know, the parts heating up and it holding to it. They don't create a lot of temperature, so I'm using it strictly as to create less friction. Now, if I was going to do the gears in a crawler or a scale vehicle that doesn't move very fast, I'd use a normal, thicker, heavier grease for the added protection. This is just to allow everything to run smoothly without any problems, especially since we just shimmed it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to mix it up a little bit. All this black goopy stuff. It's always a good idea to mix this up a little bit, get everything working, especially if it's been sitting on the shelf for a little bit. Okay, so we're going to wipe off the excess. Just grab a little bit, and we're going to dab, not on the gear itself, but what we're going to do is actually dab it around the inside of the housing. Just for any kind of friction that it could create. Now I'm only using a very little. I'm just coating it. Okay. So what I have here is the Traxxas upgraded steel drive shafts. Now these drive shafts don't come with any boots, any grease, or anything like that. So I actually came up with an idea that I'm going to try right now, and hopefully it works. Now, considering these cars need maintenance, you got to tear them apart every now and then, I'm not too worried about having to tear it apart and constantly clean it. But what I'm going to do is actually take some of the grease here and put it on the inside of the cup. So that way when the ball from the drive shaft sits into it, it doesn't create a lot of friction when it's rotating. It allows for everything to run smoother. Okay? Now, understandably, there is no boot that goes in here to help hold all that grease in. But again, I'm not too worried about it at the moment. Okay? So we're going to put this back in. Take this pin, if I can get it. And we're going to find a little hole. And we're just going to put it back in. Now, something I just thought about is that's actually the wrong pin. Boy, I'm making a few mistakes today. Alright, so now that I got the pin in there and it's holding, I'm just going to work this around a little bit. Okay, get all that grease moving in there nicely. Any excess grease, just wipe it off. Just need a little bit in there, okay? Alright, now another thing that's recommended to do on these is to replace the O-rings that sit on these drive shafts. Alright, so there we go. I just brought one of my lights a little closer. Okay, so what the O-ring does is actually sits around that pin that holds the whole thing together. Okay? So we're going to slide that O-ring on, pinch it, and just push it down over that area, and it'll sit right in that groove. So there we go. Now everything is back into place. Alright? Yay! It's all back together. I've been waiting several weeks to get to this point. Alright, so now we gotta hold it all together using its back brace, which just simply slides over these back pins. Okay. Just like so. So there you go. Now let's hold a little bit of lighting there. Alright. So now that it's almost all back together, okay, the next step that I'm going to do is the support arms for the hubs. I'm going to screw that into the center and get that taken care of. Okay. Alright. So next step, I'm going to add a little bit more of this grease to the differential, and I'm using this little acid brush, is what it's called. Pick this up down at Napa or Advanced Auto Parts or so forth, and they work perfect because it's the exact same size as the diff. Alright, so we're just going to apply a little bit in there, kind of paint it on. Alright, spin this a little bit, get the other side, do a little more. And you want to coat it, okay? Don't worry about globbing it up. Seriously. Why do I say that? Because it's just going to find any excess hole to sit in. And as it's running, it's only going to use what it needs. Okay. So now that we've got that all nice and covered, I'm going to go ahead and work it in. Now that we got that, we've shimmed the diff, we re-greased it, put new diff fluid in, and reassembled the whole thing. Alright, so now we're going to go put that off to the side, and now we're going to go and start up on rebuilding the transmission and the electric motor, putting new bearings inside of it.